Welcome to Build Strong Habits podcast channel. This is an audio podcast, so take your eyes off the screen, sit back, relax, and listen.
Have you ever found yourself kind of like rooting for the character
Yeah.
that you just, you shouldn't? The one who just kind of throws the rule book out, lives life on their own terms, and somehow makes it all look tempting.
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it? This whole idea. We're drawn to these characters, even when we know they're not exactly, role models.
Right. Exactly. And today we're going to dive deep into this whole idea using those lovable rogues, Charlie and Alan Harper, as our prime examples
Oh, those two.
from Two and a Half Men.
Yes.
Charlie the carefree jingle writer
Hmm.
with a penchant for beautiful women and a distinct aversion to responsibility. And Alan, his well-meaning but perpetually flustered brother, who often seems to be the voice of reason, or at least he tries to be.
Well, and that's what's so interesting. Why are we so captivated by Charlie with all of his flaws, while Alan, the more moral character, sometimes kind of fades into the background? It's almost like we're living vicariously through Charlie's escapades, like indulging in a bit of wish fulfillment.
Oh, it's so true. Think about it. Who hasn't fantasized about ditching the daily grind, hitting the beach, having a carefree life filled with music, laughter, and maybe a margarita or two?
Yeah.
Charlie embodies that fantasy.
He really does.
Remember that episode where he convinces Alan to skip out on all his responsibilities and join him for a spontaneous trip to Vegas?
Oh, yeah.
Alan's fretting over his finances and upcoming appointments, and Charlie's just soaking it all in, living in the moment.
Yeah, that episode really perfectly illustrates the appeal of that bad boy archetype. Charlie embodies this idea of rebellion against societal norms. He rejects the conventional path, the 9-to-5 grind, the pressure to settle down and conform. And in a way, that rebellious spirit can be so incredibly liberating, especially for those of us who feel stuck in a rut.
It's like he's giving us permission to break free, to embrace our own inner Charlie, even if just for a little while.
I love that.
And let's not forget the role humor plays in all of this. Charlie's quick wit and those legendary one-liners, they definitely soften the edges of his less than admirable behavior.
For sure.
Who can forget when he told Alan, "You're like a human Band-Aid. You're small, sticky, and nobody wants you around."
Ouch. Harsh. But you can't help but chuckle.
Oh, you can't.
At his delivery, humor is such a powerful tool. It allows us to enjoy a character's flaws, to laugh at their antics, even when we might not condone their actions in real life. It creates a sense of connection and even forgiveness.
It's true. We might not agree with everything Charlie does, but his humor makes him relatable, even endearing. And that's something Alan, with his often self-deprecating humor, just doesn't quite achieve.
Exactly. Alan's humor often highlights his insecurities, makes him more pitiable than appealing. And that brings us to another key aspect of Charlie's appeal, his unshakable confidence. He's comfortable in his own skin, flaws and all. Doesn't seek approval or validation, he simply is. And that kind of self-assurance can be so magnetic.
Think about that scene where they're at a party and Charlie's just effortlessly charming everyone while Alan's awkwardly trying to fit in. It's like Charlie doesn't even have to try. He just exudes this aura of confidence that draws people to him.
And this confidence plays a crucial role in that dynamic between the two brothers. Charlie, with his swagger and self-assuredness, becomes the dominant figure, while Alan, constantly seeking approval and validation, often ends up playing that submissive role.
It's fascinating how this dynamic reinforces our sympathy for Charlie, even though objectively he's often the one causing the trouble. We see Alan being taken advantage of, and we almost want him to stand up for himself,
Right.
to break free from Charlie's influence. But at the same time, there's something about Charlie's charisma, his ability to bend the world to his will, that keeps us captivated.
It's like we're witnessing this psychological tug of war, both within the characters and within ourselves as viewers.
Yeah.
We're drawn to Charlie's boldness and freedom, but we also recognize Alan's vulnerability and desire for connection, and this internal conflict makes their relationship and the show itself all the more compelling.
It's like watching a high-wire act, where you're simultaneously terrified and exhilarated, wondering if they'll manage to pull it off. And speaking of pulling things off, that brings us to another crucial element of Charlie's appeal: his seeming ability to escape consequences.
He lives in a world where the rules just seem to bend for him,
Yeah.
where actions don't always have the same consequences they do for, like, the rest of us.
Exactly. It's like He's living in this perpetual state of wish fulfillment,
Hmm.
like indulging in all the things we might secretly desire but wouldn't dare to do ourselves.
Oh, think of that time he convinced his, uptight neighbor Rose to go skinny dipping in the ocean.
Yeah.
Throws caution to the wind, and somehow it all works out for him.
It's almost like he embodies that trickster archetype,
Oh, interesting.
a figure found in mythology and folklore throughout history. These characters disrupt the status quo, challenge authority, and often use wit and cunning to outsmart those who try to control them.
Oh, that's a brilliant connection. And just like those mythological tricksters, Charlie often serves as a catalyst for chaos and change,
Right.
shaking things up for those around him,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
And it's that element of unpredictability that keeps us on the edge of our seats. Will he get caught this time? Will his actions finally catch up with him? Or will he once again manage to charm his way out of trouble?
And more often than not, he does manage to escape unscathed. This reinforces the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could get away with it too if we were only brave enough, charming enough, or perhaps just lucky enough. It taps into this primal desire for freedom from consequences, a fantasy that's both exhilarating and, let's be honest, a little bit dangerous.
It's that what if that makes us both root for him and worry about him at the same time. It's this complex mix of emotions that keeps us invested in his journey.
And this is where the contrast with Alan becomes even more striking. While Charlie seems to dance through life with this mischievous grin, Alan is constantly grappling with the weight of his responsibilities, facing the very real consequences of his actions, or often his inactions.
He's the relatable everyman, struggling with finances, relationships, and all the mundane but very real challenges of everyday life. He's the voice of reason, the one who reminds us that actions do have consequences, even if Charlie seems to defy that logic.
And perhaps that's why Alan, despite his good intentions, can sometimes be less appealing. His struggles hit a little too close to home for comfort.
Oh, yeah.
We see ourselves in his anxieties, his self-doubt, his tendency to overthink and second-guess himself.
It's like we're looking in a mirror and seeing all the things we wish we could change about ourselves. And sometimes that can be a bit too much reality for a show designed to entertain.
It's true. We turn to entertainment for a variety of reasons: escapism, laughter, emotional connection. And while Alan provides moments of humor and relatability, he doesn't offer the same sense of vicarious thrill, the same fantasy of freedom and consequence-free living that we get from Charlie.
And let's not forget the undeniable power dynamic between the two brothers.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point.
Charlie, with his devil-may-care attitude and unwavering confidence, often holds the upper hand, while Alan, seeking his brother's approval and often relying on him for financial support, often finds himself in a more subservient role.
It's a dynamic that speaks to deeper psychological patterns in human relationships. We see it in families, friendships, even romantic partnerships. There's often an imbalance of power, a push and pull between those who assert dominance and those who seek approval or validation.
And it's fascinating to see how this plays out in 2.5 Men. We see Alan constantly trying to please Charlie to win his approval, even when Charlie treats him poorly. It creates a tension that's both uncomfortable and strangely compelling.
We're almost protective of Alan, wanting him to stand up for himself, to assert his own needs and desires. But at the same time, we're drawn to Charlie's magnetism, his ability to get what he wants, even if it means bending the rules or pushing people's buttons.
It's a complex dynamic that reflects the complexities of human relationships in general. We're all drawn to different types of people, and sometimes we find ourselves in situations where the balance of power is uneven.
And the beauty of 2.5 Men is that it allows us to explore these dynamics in a safe, humorous environment.
Right.
We can laugh at the absurdity of their situations, relate to their struggles, and perhaps even gain a bit of insight into our own relationships and patterns of behavior.
It's like the show is holding up a mirror to our own lives, reflecting back to us the complexities of family friendship and the constant negotiation of power and vulnerability that comes with being human.
And it does so with a healthy dose of humor, reminding us that even in the midst of chaos and dysfunction, there's always room for laughter and a bit of self-reflection.
Well said. But I think there's another important element to consider here, the concept of guilty pleasure. Why do we enjoy watching characters like Charlie, even when we know they're not exactly role models?
Yeah.
Why do we find ourselves rooting for them even as we recognize their flaws?
Yeah, it's a question worth exploring. Part of it might be the escapism factor. Charlie represents a fantasy, a life unburdened by responsibility and convention. He just does what he wants when he wants, and somehow he always seems to land on his feet.
It's like watching a high-wire act without a safety net. He should fall, but he never does. And there's a thrill in that, a sense of like vicarious rebellion against the rules that govern our own lives.
Exactly. We all have those moments where we yearn for a little more freedom, a little less responsibility. And Charlie embodies that yearning, that desire to break free from the constraints of everyday life.
He's the ultimate id-driven character, living purely for pleasure and just avoiding pain at all costs. And while we might recognize that this isn't really a sustainable way to live in the real world, there's a part of us that envies his ability to just shrug off responsibility and embrace the moment.
And let's be honest, there's a certain entertainment value in watching someone get away with things that we never could. It's like watching a magic trick. We know it's an illusion, but we're still captivated by the sleight of hand.
It's true. And Charlie is a master illusionist when it comes to dodging consequences. He's charming, he's witty, and he always seems to have a plan, even if that plan involves bending the truth or relying on his brother to bail him out.
And this brings us to another, crucial element of the guilty pleasure phenomenon, the suspension of disbelief. When we watch a show like Two and a Half Men, we're entering this fictional world where the rules are different, where consequences are often softened or delayed.
We allow ourselves to be swept away by the humor, the characters, the situations, even if we know deep down that it's all make-believe. And in that space of suspended disbelief, we can enjoy Charlie's antics without feeling the full weight of their real-world implications.
It's like reading a fairy tale or watching a superhero movie. We know it's not real, but we allow ourselves to be transported to this world where anything is possible, where good often triumphs over evil, and where even flawed characters can find redemption.
And perhaps that's the ultimate appeal of characters like Charlie Harper. They offer us this temporary escape from the complexities and challenges of everyday life. They remind us that it's okay to laugh at ourselves, to embrace our flaws, and to indulge in a little bit of wish fulfillment every now and then.
But it's important to remember that fiction is just that, fiction. While we can learn from and enjoy characters like Charlie, it's crucial to ground our own lives in a sense of responsibility, empathy, and a realistic understanding of consequences.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Charlie and Alan Harper, I want to leave you with this thought. What is it about bad boy characters that resonates with you? What need are they fulfilling, and what can we learn from their triumphs and their failures?
And keep those questions in mind as you explore the world of entertainment. And remember, sometimes the most compelling characters are the ones who make us question everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the world around us.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the complexities of human nature and that enduring allure of the bad boy. Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing that fascinating messiness of the human experience.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Build Strong Habits.